I clearly know who you are, but if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and giving a little bit of background, and then telling us about what you're going to be presenting on at Elite Training Day.
Sounds good. My name is Bryan Barlow. I'm with the Chicago Police Department. I've been there for about 20 years. I have about a dozen years in the Army before that. But with the police department, I started off in 2002. So like I said, just under 20 years. I made detective in 2008 and pretty much spent my entire career in investigations in one form or another. It was kind of interesting because I got the opportunity to bounce around a lot because of making detective so early. I got low seniority and I got bounced to all different kinds of investigations, got to do a little bit of everything. So I wound up being more of a jack of all trades. And then about 6 years ago, I got asked to come over and start teaching. And what I do now for the Chicago Police Bureau of Detectives is I am the instructor that does pre-service detective training. So anytime we promote anybody, I train them. I do in-service training, which is required in Illinois for homicide investigators and sexual assault investigators. And then I train new recruits too. So through the course of this, I've done a lot of research and writing in these areas. And that kind of brought me to where I am today to come talk to you guys. And one of the big things that changed in Illinois, at least, is the requirement for trauma-informed interviewing. And so that became a big thing, and I got really into it, and it actually dovetailed very well with a lot of my personal experiences with the police department and the military. So I got to be very interested in the effect that trauma has on somebody, the effect on their brain, their memory, and essentially as investigators, if we're trying to figure out what happened with something, and it could be like, you know, from a law enforcement perspective, it can be a major crime. From the private sector side, it could be sexual harassment investigations, God forbid, workplace violence investigations, any number of things. But it's basically a way of asking questions to somebody who's been traumatized that will enable them to answer them and for us to get the most information possible.
Oh, well, yeah, that's awesome. So, well, clearly it sounds like you're a very busy person since you train, it sounds like everybody at the Chicago Police Department. The topic of trauma interviewing, I think, is really interesting because a lot of times people hear trauma interviewing and they kind of assume that if their job is in the private sector, especially, that it doesn't really apply. It's kind of that what you're touching on, though, is this universality of people experiencing trauma, and especially in the private sector with HR, it sounds like it's got tons of applications.
Oh, absolutely. You know, trauma can come in many different forms. It could be somebody that has to take care of a dying parent. It could be somebody who is in a major car accident. You know, you talk about the HR applications, like I said, the sexual assault investigation or sexual harassment investigations. Hopefully they don't involve the sexual assault, but a sexual harassment investigation could be one that people would be very interested in. Also, any other kind of workplace violence. And then there are a lot of things when it comes to interviewing people in HR related investigations where, you know, having your job or your position threatened, be it by somebody else, by poor performance, whatever it is, can be traumatizing in and of itself. And if somebody in HR is going to have a conversation with somebody who may just need coaching, you have to keep in mind it might be a very difficult session for that person to sit through as well. So if you're trying to elicit information, and that's what the whole point of interviewing somebody who's been, you know, the trauma-informed interviewing is, it's a better way of approaching it. It might seem therapeutic, but it's actually designed to elicit information. But it's really just about talking to somebody in such a way as to minimize any kind of re-traumatization that might go on with them.
Sure. No, that seems extremely important, and something that probably a lot of people have not had or have had very limited exposure to in training that they've had in the field. So takeaways from your presentation, it sounds like people will get kind of a general understanding as to what trauma is and how it affects different individuals. Is that fair? And then also some practical tips and tricks as to how they can start to maybe really reapproach the way they're having some of these tough conversations.
Yeah, and really it's all about changing a little bit of the mindset and understanding that basically people who have been traumatized, they can't answer all your questions in the normal fashion. This isn't I ask, you know, tell me the story from A to Z. It doesn't work that way. And so understanding a little bit more and having a little bit more empathy with what somebody who's been traumatized and how their brain remembers things can definitely help you as far as communicating with that person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm super excited about it. You are going to be on day one, which we've got 4 other speakers on day one presenting. So it's going to be a jam-packed day of really great content and hopefully a lot of useful information that people can use in the field to be more effective in some of these conversations. I'm also going to ask, because I'm assuming the answer is yes, are you going to be singing karaoke since we're going to be in Nashville?
I can't really do that one.
Okay, well, that's fair. I may as well have asked, though. All right, well,
maybe I should bring my wife. She's a big karaoke fan.
that's a great idea. Yeah, maybe she'd get you in the mood to actually get up there and sing a few songs.
I don't think anybody wants that.
Well, either way, I'm super excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time to do this, and obviously for taking the time to come and be with us in Nashville in October. For those of you listening, Bryan Barlow's information is on our website about the presentation, a little bit more detail about what that's going to involve, and also Bryan's background. But don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. We're looking forward to seeing all of you in Nashville in October. Thank you.
Thanks very much.